Venus. This is the planet in your birth chart that talks about love and relationship. It is the general significator of love and marriage relationship for everyone. And today's video is going to talk about the potential difficulties and short circuits that we can run into if we have a Venus placement that is in a sign not very comfortable for the natural expression of Venus. What I am specifically talking about is if you have your Venus in detriment, either in Aries or in Scorpio, or in her sign of fall, which is Virgo. These three signs in particular can produce more difficulty in love and relationship dynamics by itself. So I am not considering what aspects your Venus placement makes in your birth chart. And please note, there are so many mitigations to this storyline. Your Venus story is unique to you. And you may have what is known in traditional astrology as a debilitated Venus, but in your personal birth chart, that debilitated Venus might be making nothing but sextiles and trines, supportive aspects to the rest of your chart. And so you actually can use it very constructively and have beautiful experiences in your life. Whereas somebody else with Venus in its sign of rulership and domicile, such as Venus in Taurus or Venus in Libra, or Venus in exaltation, where she's like on her throne in Pisces, maybe you have one of those placements, but your Venus has nothing but squares and oppositions. So you are not able to fully experience the best of Venus's significations in that case. This video isn't going that deep. I can't look at your personal aspects in your birth chart. I can't possibly know all of your combinations. That's impossible. You have to consult an astrologer to really dig deep into the nuanced part of your horoscope. And if you are interested in scheduling a consultation with me, just go to insightfulastrology.com and you can do that. But any astrologer, any professional astrologer will be able to help you understand your particular Venus dynamic. So if you know that your Venus is in its sign of detriment or fall, what does that mean for you? Or maybe someone you love has their Venus placement in detriment or fall. First, let's talk about what this even means. Again, Venus is the planet of love, of relationship. Venus also has other significations. She is a planet that rules young women, aesthetics, value, what we value. It rules in modern astrology our values, our talents and abilities. So Venus has a lot to offer in a person's birth chart. And being in its sign of rulership naturally means that Venus is able to do Venus things where she feels most at home. So think of a planet that is in its sign of domicile or rulership, literally as being in her own home, home base, very comforted, really able to have all the beautiful comforts of home necessary to fully actualize who she is. That's what it's like when you have Venus in Libra or Venus in Taurus. When you have Venus in exaltation, it's the next best thing because even though you're not technically in your own home, you're in a place where maybe you're in a relative's home, some best friend, somebody who is going to accommodate you, go out of their way to accommodate you and make sure that all of your Venusian needs are met and able to be expressed. That's what it's like to have Venus in exaltation, which is the sign of Pisces. Now, the signs opposite the rulership are known as detriment. The sign opposite exaltation in astrology is known as its fall. And when a planet is in its sign of detriment, that planet is forced to function in a way that is completely alien to what makes him or her feel comfortable. And that can cause a problem. That can become an impediment in getting the Venus things in life. When a sign is in its fall, that it's really in exile. It is like an alien. You're being shipped to Mars and you're stuck all by yourself. You have no resources at all when you're in exile. So you can appreciate when you start to understand this concept of dignity and debility, why some planets function better in certain signs than in others, generally speaking. Now, what happens if you have Venus in Aries? If you or someone you love, someone you know has Venus in the sign of Aries, this automatically becomes a problem. She's in detriment. Aries is a sign that naturally corresponds to Mars, to Martian energies, to being more generative, to being more outer directed. Venus is a planet that wants to be receptive, magnetic, that wants to attract. Aries is a sign that doesn't care about being receptive. Aries is the opposite. Aries is very direct, proactive, goes after what it wants, initiates, and does so very quickly, very impulsively, without hesitation very often. And so Aries is a sign as a cardinal fire sign that is also connected to the self and is very self-directed and self-oriented and is supposed to be. But now we have Venus, the significator of relationship dynamics, in a sign that is very much self oriented and self directed. So that Venus in Aries person is being forced to do relationships in a style that is not necessarily conducive to connection, to partnership. And Venus and Aries people often have a very difficult time in love and relationship because the energy of how they tend to go about getting love and relationship is very self oriented, not very much other oriented. And again, this is the general energy of Venus and Aries. Your Venus and Aries might be mitigated depending on what it's doing in your birth chart, but it is still going to be at that disadvantage of being more selfish in relationships, self directed, of not naturally accommodating the other person. That's not on the radar. That's not the natural style of Venus and Aries. And so that's not really supportive of relationship because there are two people in relationship. So you see how Venus and Aries can be this, I don't want to say dysfunctional, but at a disadvantage when it comes to love and relationship matters. So Venus and Aries has to learn to pursue love and relationship dynamics, being true to her Venus and Aries self, but recognize that not everybody else is going to appreciate that approach. So that's Venus and Aries. Now, what happens when you've got Venus in Scorpio? Well, Venus in Scorpio is also in her sign of detriment because she is opposite a sign of rulership. She would be opposite Venus in Taurus, where Venus in Aries would be opposite Venus in Libra. So Venus in Scorpio has a little bit of a different problem than Venus in Aries, but a similarity in the sense of being in a sign ruled by Mars. But it is in a sign ruled by the more feminine expression of Mars. So it is not as abrasive as a person with Venus and Aries when it comes to love dynamics on the outer level. It becomes difficult on a very subtle, internal, quiet level because Scorpio is a fixed water sign that, again, ruled by Mars and can be very controlling and obsessive in relationships. And Venus is about cooperation, it is about compromise, collaboration, about partnership, about us. Venus is about love in a harmonious way. Well, Venus in Aries or Venus in Scorpio, love is a battlefield. Love is not harmonious in its natural state. And Venus and Scorpio people tend to attract romantic situations that are crisis filled, that are really intense and profound, but complicated. And so it is not giving that support for this easy breezy, harmonious relationship by itself. Venus in Scorpio can be a very loyal placement in love because it's a fixed sign, but it can also be very dark and controlling. And, I think of I don't want to love you, I want to own you. I want to drink your blood. Okay, that's like Venus and Scorpio. And that's off putting to Venus, right? That's like ick for Venus by itself. Scorpio is intense and all or nothing, very extreme. I love you or I hate you, one or the other. And if I love you, I'm all in, I'm obsessed, I'm drinking your blood. It is us ride or die, and I will kill for love. That's Venus and Scorpio. Not easy for Venus by itself to be having to express Venusian desires in that Scorpio style. And that's why Venus is in detriment in Scorpio. Now, Venus in Virgo, if you have Venus in Virgo, then it is in exile. It is in its sign of fall. It has fallen as far away from being Venusian that it possibly can. And so the difficulty here is that, Venus in Pisces, which is the sign of exaltation, that is unconditional, all encompassing love that doesn't discriminate, that has no boundaries. And that can be a very, very higher vibration form of love. Venus in Virgo is I love no one, okay, at its extreme. So Venus in Pisces, I love everyone. Venus in Virgo, I love no one. Because the planet of love and relationship is being forced to act in a style that is extremely analytical and discerning and practical. A little bit too much of an extreme. And so that's why I call people with Venus in Virgo, you've got the impossible checklist, because you will analyze a love potential to death. You will have all of these boxes that have to be checked for the person, for you to even let the person in. And that can be a barrier to love even getting off of the ground, and in its worst case scenario. It's also a sign that very often would rather be alone and celibate than get into a messy love situation. So again, it's hard for Venus and Virgo to do the Venus things. If you're isolating yourself, if you're staying on your own, if you're not opening yourself up to a potential love experience because you're shutting everyone down since they don't meet your criteria, Venus can't get Venus's function met. That's why Venus in Virgo can be so difficult. Now, I want to reiterate again, just because you have one of those Venus placements does not mean your love life is destined to be an eternal shit show. We are not taking into consideration the aspects that Venus makes in your chart. Is it angular? Is it making trines and sextiles? What house is it in? Okay, we're not looking at any of that. We're just looking at the sign expression by itself, which you're going to relate to in a general way if you have one of those placements, but it might work for you. Okay, so if you got Venus in Virgo and it's making nothing but gorgeous aspects, then you may be attracting relationships and opening yourself up, and acts of service might be really important for you. Maybe you're attracting someone who's in healthcare or a service oriented field, or you want to always do something for that person. If you have Venus in Aries and it's beautifully aspected, maybe you're always attracting the entrepreneurial, fiery, spirited, independent leaders to you. And that works out well in your case. And you having that energy, it's being matched and met and accepted and embraced instead of other people finding it off putting. If you have Venus in Scorpio and it's beautifully aspected, well, you might have a relationship and be married for 45 years. Okay. And it could literally be till death do us part, a powerful, powerful love bond. I don't know what your Venus is doing. Why don't you tell me in the comments? How is your Venus in detriment or fall aspected in your chart? And what have your actual real life astrology experiences been with your Venus placement? I would love to know. And thank you for watching. And I hope you consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.